Igwe, Igwe, only you are God. Igwe, Igwe, only you are God. Igwe. I greet you all in the name of Jesus Christ, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. We are the Lords and we are the Kings, and Jesus is the King of Kings and He is the Lord of Lords. Zoe Communion Frederick coming to you this night from Muranga town of Muranga County, Kenya, East Africa. And as I say, this is the day, the night, the evening, the morning, whatever you are, that the Lord has made for us to rejoice and to be glad in it. Thank you for coming into this broadcast tonight, even as we continue with our sharings concerning the kingdom of heaven. And yesterday we were dealing with the last part of what you are calling that confluence, the confluence that you're calling the duality or the dual nature of the kingdom. And today I wanted us to proceed on into other dimensions of the kingdom of heaven, the laws that define and characterize the kingdom of the heaven. And today I wanted us to deal with something that I'm calling the natural law in a spiritual environment, or the natural laws that are somehow put in place to teach us about the realm and the reality of the kingdom of heaven. And we shall be looking at things in nature, principles, because I believe and I hold this family that anything that you are given in nature, anything that you're calling a natural principle, the natural principles that have been put into effect on the planet, they have been placed there to become more or less our teachers, our tutors, for us to learn things that are spiritual, so that no one will be left without understanding. There are principles that have been put in nature. They are natural principles, natural laws that have been fixated on the planet and in the way things happen on the planet to teach us matters of the spirit, or the matters of the kingdom of heaven. Now, there is something that I would wish us to know every day. Like now, by the end of today, by midnight, 300,000 children will have been born to the planet. Now, that's a staggering figure. 300,000, 0.3 million children will have been born by midnight tonight, and by 1 tonight, the cycle will start again. There will be other 0.3 million that will be born by tomorrow evening, by tomorrow night, by midnight tomorrow. There will be 300,000 more, 0.3 million children will be born. All of them, they look almost the same. Unless there is some disfigurement, or as a child is born without some digits or lacking some members of the body, all these children will be the same. They will be looking the same. They'll be having the same number of eyes, the same number of ears, fingers, toes, legs, and all of them, they will be almost the same size. My wife works in the labor ward. Right now, she's at work, and her work is to receive these people. she'll be contributing in part of the process of receiving these 300,000 new human beings that will be arriving tonight. By the end of tonight, there will be 300,000 more on the planet. They have the same needs. All these new humans that are coming, almost the same size, almost weighing the same. They average around 2.8 kilograms. When they will be coming, they'll be arriving. All of them, they will be having the same needs. They will need basically the love of their parents. They will need food. They will need protection. That's the reason why they wear clothes, and they will need to be schooled, or to be taught. They will learn something. There are basic things that they will learn. They will learn some gestures. They learn by looking at, especially the mother. They will look at the mother, and they will look at her face while this baby is suckling and things like that, and they will start encoding some data. They will learn about the environment they have come in. When it becomes too hot, they will respond in a certain way. When it becomes too cold, the environment, they will respond in a certain way. If they have a certain pain, they will respond. They are learning. These are processes of learning before they can even encode their language into any discernible, coherent, let me call it language. They will have already started to communicate. There will be some certain behaviors, some certain noises, some certain laughs, gigglings, sounds. They will be making some things to show that they are understanding the environment, and they are informing the people outside here about the environment on the inside of them. So every one of these 300,000 humans that will have arrived tonight, by midnight, they have their own special features. These people, each of them, they will have been born on a certain day. This other person will have been born, or it's not day actually, but by time, they will have been born at a certain time. A cluster of them will be born at the same time. All these 300,000, they will be born within the 24 hours. They will enter some certain clusters, and some certain information about them will be recorded in the books of history of how they came. Now, they will be coming on the planet different times, different places, different sets of circumstances. But now let's take, for example, all of them that came within the first 24 hours between last night at 1 and tonight by midnight. These 300,000, try to imagine, take this scenario, these 300,000 people, they meet on their 25th birthday. They look almost the same by the time they are coming. All of them, they came naked. They have the same digits, they have the same desires, they have the same needs. But let's talk about them meeting. Hypothetically, they meet on their 25th birthday, male, female, they are boys and girls. They meet on their 25th birthday. Then you will realize their special uniqueness. All of them, almost all of them, had the same skin color. They came very, having this, the hair was the same and things like that. But by their 25th birthday, there will be disparities. There will be there's a permutation. There is a permutation of what these people are. You will see their differences. Some of them will be tall, others will be short, others will be darker than the others, others will have slender noses, others will have broad noses, others will have teeth in a certain way, others' eyes, ears will be formed in a certain way. The texture of the hair, the color of their hair, the color of their eyeballs, everything will be different. Even their skin color, some will be very thin, others will be very, I don't want to use the word fat, they will be not so thin. The skin colors there will be permutations. They will come from white through yellow, brown, towards brown, then black. The others will be reddish. There will be all these permutations of colors in these children, 300,000 of them. Now, equally different will be their personalities. They won't have the same personalities, and the word personality comes from two words, par and sonea. It means to sound through. So they will be having different quote-unquote masks. The life will cause them, the environment they land in will cause them to develop some certain masks through which they play the game of life. They will be having different personalities. They'll be having different mental abilities. They'll be having different giftings. We may call them talents. They'll be having different ways of living. They'll be having different desires. They came through the same process, but all of them, there will be 300,000 different permutations of the same child. They came the same time within the 24 hours. But within 25 years, they will have all these 300,000 permutations. Now, all of them were born the same day. All of them were born at the same time. They were in similar ways. They looked almost the same because all of them came out crying. You understand? They had the same environment. They had the same breathing. They were breathing the same. They were suckling the same. They were crying the same. They pooped the same. You understand? Even they were gulping and the same and all these things. They were doing things the same. But within 25 years, every one of them will have grown into an individual human being that is totally different from the rest of the 300,000. They will be totally different. And every one of them, they will have different desires. Some of them who will They will love these kinds of food. Some of them, they will love boiled food. Others, they like fried foods. Others will like cooked food. Others will like fast foods. They will have different desires for foods. Some of them, they will be speaking different languages. There are those who will be speaking French. Others will be speaking German. Others will be speaking Chinese, Russian. Others will be speaking American English, where others are talking British English. Others will be speaking some indigenous languages of the Brazil, of the Amazon forest. Others will be speaking some very strange African languages. They will be speaking all these things. Others, within 25 years, they will have found God. They'll be worshippers and pursuers of God. Others will be totally atheists. They have no concept. Others, they don't even have an idea of anything that is called God. They will have permutated to all this. They will be having others will be following or worshipping what you might call animistic gods. They will be worshipping trees, worshipping mountains, worshipping some the spirits of certain animals, and they will be living their lives in that. They will be having ancestral worship, the worship of spirits of ancestors, depending on some various factors, and we shall be looking at these things. They will be dressing differently. Others will be dressing scantily. Others will be dressing, according to a certain culture. Like now, I'm dressed the way I'm dressing because of a certain culture. It's a certain culture that colonized my country. And the culture that colonized my country was British. And we dress in a certain way because of that culture. All these things, they are things that affect the way somebody dresses. All these cultures, the foods, for example, we tend to take tea in the morning. Personally, I'm a lover of tea. I love tea, black, white tea, perfect. That's to me. If you want to be my friend, take me somewhere and buy me tea. I love tea. We can talk over a mug of tea, or over, if you bring me a whole flask of tea, you have my time. We can talk. But all these things, they are things I have come to love tea because of a certain culture, a certain environment that I found myself in. I was born without any desire for tea. I didn't know tea before I was born, but I have grown in a certain environment. I've grown in a certain culture. I've grown in a certain place that had this culture, that was the environment I was born in. I was born in a family where my father and my mother, both of them, worked in Del Monte. For example, they worked in Del Monte, Cereal Del Monte, a company that manufactured, or not actually manufactured, but processed pineapples into cans. They canned pineapples, and they had all these products that came from the pineapple fruit. And so my mother, during some certain seasons of her work, she would come home. Even my grandmother, they would come home with canned pineapples. And since I was young, I was raised with this fruit. I have eaten more pineapples. I think the only people who have eaten more pineapples than me, maybe just one person, Raddy John, because he comes from the place where they grow them. And them is not an industry. Them is in the farms. He comes from a place whereby pineapples was the order of the day. Maybe he has eaten more than I, but I know I have eaten quite a supply of pineapples, and I've grown. So all these things, that the eating of pineapples almost on a monthly basis, it developed my body in a certain way. That's the kind of food that I was eating. I had a nourishment of that. And people who eat some certain kinds of food, they have some certain abilities or some certain traits to their physical self than other people. So even after 300,000 children were born around the same environment, all of them were born, they had the same nutrition, they suckled from their mothers. Within 25 years, there are principles that have come to make sure that these children, or these humans who are now 25 years old, though they came using the same principles, they were raised almost around the same environment, or of the same let me call controlled situations, they permutated to 300,000 distinct humans based on two forces. And that's what I want us to look at today. There are two forces that affect and in effect what a person becomes. We are dealing with nature, the laws of nature. These natural laws, we shall be looking at the spiritual patterns, the spiritual principles that we can learn from them, and we see how they affect our growing up in the kingdom of heaven. Praise the name of the Lord. Now, these two principles that affect how children, 300,000 of them, 300,000 of them, born within 24 hours, how within 25 years they permutate to become 300,000 distinct permutations of the same child. These principles are: number one, heredity, and number two, environment. Now, these two principles, heredity and environment, none of them on their own is capable of determining a human being. None of them. Neither heredity. You cannot say heredity is a determinant of what a person becomes. Neither can you say an environment is a determinant of what a person becomes. Not either of them, but both of them working in tandem. Now, heredity, to give an explanation or to give a definition, heredity is a word used to mean the way in which certain characteristics are passed from parents to children, from one generation to another. Now, what is heredity? It is it's a word that is used in English to describe the way certain characteristics are passed from parents to children, from one generation to another generation. Now, using heredity, or using that trait that we call heredity, each child is born with human characteristics that make them a distinct human being, different from everybody else. Using heredity, there are some certain traits that each child is born with that makes them a distinct human, Now, on the other hand, environment is a term in English that we use to stand for all the conditions and all the influences from outside. Heredity is inside, But environment, there are all these traits, all these conditions, and all these influences that are outside. And these influences, they become part of a human's or a person's life. They become part of their life, and they affect their development. For example, included in someone's heredity is, for example, the color of your hair, the color of your eyes, the color of your skin, sometimes your height, your stature, whether you are built or slender, your physical stature, your facial characteristics, the way the cheekbones are placed, the way your forehead looks like, the way your ears are positioned, all these things, even your temperament, the ability to behave in a certain way, and there are some other biological features. Like now, sometimes I look at my toes, and I see the toes of my father. He had the same toes. You see, my toes is exactly my father's. So there are things that we take, biological features that we take, that are passed on from a certain parent to the child, and the child will grow up and pass it to their child. There are traits that are communicable, biological and physiological, that are transmittable in that sense. And those traits is what you're calling hereditary. They are things, they are traits, they are things, characteristics that are grouped around that word that is called hereditary. Now, included in someone's environment is, number one, for example, the food he eats. the water he drinks, this water, it's piped water. It's piped water. It has come through something we call Muasco, Muranga Water and Sanitation Company. That's what we drink in Muranga town. The food we eat, the liquids we drink. Personally, I am not so fond of any other drink more than milk. I love milk. That's me. I love milk. You coming to the house, you can't lack milk, and it's not a few liters. It's quite some liters. You come into this house, if there is no milk, there is something that is lacking. It's not as serious. Lacking rent, when you don't have house rent, it's not a serious problem in this house as lacking milk. That's me. So I love milk. And the kind of foods a person eats, the kind of fluids a person drinks, the quality of the air a person breathes, the place that person lives, the home the person is brought up in, the family, a person is brought up, the values this family had, how the father manifested that name, the name of the father, how the mother produced that motherhood, how the neighbors interacted with this person, the diseases they contracted, because there are some areas and some environments that are more prone to some certain kind of diseases than others. There are some other areas you don't hear of some certain names in the name of diseases. You see, the kind of ideas this person gets is part of environment. The kind of people this person meets is part of environment. The kind of schools or education, whether in the family, whether in the society, in the school, in the church, a mosque, a temple, wherever this person gets data from, whatsoever, television, media, printed media, mass media, social media, all these things, the internet, the kind of data and education this person is exposed to, it is part of the environment, and that is going to affect what this person becomes, whether we like it or not. Therefore, we can see that environment is a powerful tool, whether we like it or not. Environment is as powerful as heredity. Even if you have some certain qualities hereditary, you may come from, quote unquote, a family of brilliant people who tend, you look at the family line, these are people who tend to be bright in the way they conduct their lives and the way they handle situations, either academic or they have some certain prowess in business, articulation of words and sentences. Therefore, they are very good in oration. You find these people, even though they have these kind of traits, if the environment is not conducive to raise this child that is born in this family of brilliant people, it is possible that this child will never manifest the traits that are seen in the family. That's why you find parents, because of anger, they find this child is behaving not like everybody in the family line. They wonder what kind of a child this is, and they sometimes they spew out some hard words, quote unquote, that might be called curses. Who did you emulate? You don't look like anybody in our family. None of us does that. You understand? And so they come with these hard situations because they thought this person is supposed to inherit. By hereditary, they are supposed to become like. Or you hear a parent like now, I remember my grandmother before she passed on, she used to have this title of endearment for me, and she used to call me my little husband. Why? In my behavior, I used to behave like, it's something like hereditary, and I used to behave like the husband. There's the way I love. For me, I loved suits. When I was as young as 5 years old, I loved dressing in suits, and I love suits. That's me. And I didn't know, my grandfather, who I'm named after, he died before I was born. I didn't know. She showed me some black and white pictures of this man, and he was always in a neatly ironed or neatly pressed either khaki suit or another, some type of suit. He was sharply dressed, and that was my grandfather. And so she used to call me, my grandmother used to call me my little husband. Maybe that is something hereditary. But do you know, the environment in which I lived in, the environment I was born and grew up in, suits were not the order of the day. Suits was something else. You either had it, if you had the money to dress in such kind of a way, then you could dress in a suit. I remember the first suit that I wore that my parents bought for me. It was we used to call them kaunda suits, kaunda suit, because the person who made that kind of a suit so famous was a president that was called Kenneth Kaunda. He used to dress in a certain kind of a suit, short sleeved, and the same color. It was like a shirt that it looked like a coat, yes, but it was short sleeved, and he used to dress like that. And so my first suit was a kaunda suit. It was brown in color. I still remember the picture. I still have it vividly in my mind, how I dressed. I treasured that suit. And then later on, my grandmother bought me another gray suit, and I used to be called the boss, and I loved dressing in those suits. You understand? So the environment, the kind of environment someone grows in, the family, the whatever, the kind of education, like now the education in our times was, when you dressed in a suit, you are a rich person. You must be rich for you to dress in a suit. It wasn't a common thing. And so the environment has so much impact in what a person becomes. The environment, the place you live, the kind of things, the people, the diseases, whatever, the things, the exposure, the things you are exposed to, they so much affect the person that you become. So we need to have it very clearly in our minds that the nature of a human being, the nature of a man, is received through heredity, the traits, the internal traits, but the sustenance, the development, and the conditioning of nature depends entirely on the environment. Environment is a powerful tool. The place where somebody is, the place where somebody finds himself, will so much affect what is going to become. For instance, a child may have an aptitude towards music, okay, but because of his environment, he doesn't hear music, he doesn't get to see someone playing music or listen to music or even have an ability to touch an instrument. He may he may be undeveloped. He has the aptitude, but he doesn't have an opportunity. The environment he's growing in has nothing musical. The child, yes, may become a musician. They may even become a very serious, highly paid musician, but they will have a problem through life for them to rise up, to rouse up this aptitude towards music. Like now in my particular situation, I have this ability to paint. Painting to me, sitting down, coming up with a picture, it's very simple. I can paint a wall, I can do canvas, whatever I can paint. I get hired and contracted to paint stuff, you see. But that thing I discovered when I was very young. I could take a piece of paper and a certain pencil. I could draw a certain figure very easily without thinking about it. But when my grandmother saw that, even though we were coming from a very, very weak family financially, the very first person who inspired me or prodded me towards drawing was my grandmother. I remember those days because of the desire to draw. I would because when we had these books. They were 32 pages. All the books were 32 pages. And I would come and, these exercise books, the formal education exercise books, I would pluck the center page so that I can draw something. It's a mathematics book, but I would pluck the center page so that I draw something. And when I come back home out of excitement and I show my father, what I had drawn, I would receive a beating. I would receive a beating because I was quote unquote destroying the mathematics book. For I was drawing some some useless pictures, and so I would receive a thorough thrashing, and I would be told, even if this book gets filled, I won't buy you another book. And so I lived in that fear. And he told me, I don't want to see any drawing in my house. See, the environment. And so I lived in fear. I couldn't draw for quite some time, until one time, out of that desire, I remember I ran away from home. I think I was in class 7 or so. I ran away from home and going to some place in town. There was a very famous movie theater. That time it used to be called Vedesh. And Vedesh, they had all these, they used to have some now showing and soon coming attraction. They had all these big papers that had been plastered everywhere showing the soon coming attraction. I remember those days. It was the days of the American Ninja, Michael Dudikoff. There was Arnold Schwarzenegger. That time it was Commando. That was a movie. We had Rambo, Sylvester Stallone. Those were the days. Cynthia Rothrock. We had Chuck Norris and these people. And so that movie theater, there was a man, I think they had hired, I don't know whether he worked in that movie theater, but he would take these posters, and he would paint that picture on the poster. He would paint a big size of it, huge painting, I think on a canvas or a board. He would paint it and it would be put up there. So one time I came by chance and I met him drawing. Later on I came to know that he was called Dan. I met him drawing, and I remember I sat down there the whole day. I forgot I was even hungry. I was sat there on the road watching him painting that thing. I think he was painting the American Ninja, Michael Dudikoff. And he painted that scene, and I sat down and I was like sucked into another dimension. And I came home, and because I wasn't there for lunch, of course there was the thrashing. But I came and I told my grandmother what I saw. And the best thing my grandmother could do, she told me, when I get my salary at the end of the month, I'm going to buy you a drawing book and you're going to draw. And that's what she did. She bought me a certain 32 page. It was more or less like an A3. And then she bought me that thing, and she bought me a pencil. For the first time I saw a Staedtler HB pencil. And she bought me some colors, 12, a carton of 12 colors. And that to me was a thing that opened me up, you see. So my grandmother is the one that nurtured the environment of when she was around. I forgot about everything else. I forgot the best way I could run away from the trouble of home was to sit down with that book and draw something. And I drew, and I've never stopped, you see. So the environment is very serious, is very critical in the development into what a child is supposed to become. If a child grows in an environment whereby its ability and its heredity, the things that are within, cannot be realized, if the environment does not allow the child to capture that, to go in, to just go within, creating an environment whereby the child can go in and uncover and discover who they are, I promise you, most likely they are going to find themselves in difficulty at the end of. No wonder people are following some certain careers that are bringing them frustration, because they have nothing to do with who this person is supposed to be. The environment messed the whole program, and by the time this person is discovering, it will take the hand of God. It will take them to have messed 30, 35, 40 years of their life. 40, 50 years, they are living 50 years, living in the wrong career, doing the wrong things because they came with a certain aptitude towards something, but the environment messed the program. So, because of the environment, The talent is not, it's there, it's just inside there. The aptitude is inside there, but having no skill at all. The environment or the skill, you find it is underdeveloped, or you find this person was supposed to become a famous painter, a Michelangelo, a Da Vinci, but because of the environment, this person is begging. He's a veterinary officer, begging for life. He's messing with other people's cows. Or you find this person is lecturing in a university because he grew in the wrong career, and everything he gets as a salary, he takes it down the gutter, drinking and living miserable life, because it has nothing to do with who his heredity has to do. It has nothing to do with him. The environment messed it up. Therefore, as much as heredity might be an issue, environment makes all the difference. The environment, the first and primary thing, or the first and the primary purpose of an environment is to sustain heredity. It is to create an environment where something that is within can grow without it being hindered. Are you understanding? Therefore, the environment is that thing or that condition or those sets of conditions that in which we live and we move and we have our being. Environment is that set of circumstances, that situation, that in which this environment we live, our heredity lives and moves and have its being. Without the environment, we would neither live, we would neither move, and we would neither have our being. Therefore, within every organism that is born on planet 3, every organism within it is contained a principle and a power of life. That's what you're calling the heredity. That's something within. But in the environment inside which this organism will find itself is what will find the power to sustain, number one. Number two, to develop the life that you're calling the hereditary life. The conditions of its life will find expression and will find the power to be and to grow and to become in the context of an environment. Are you understanding? So every living thing normally requires for its development a certain environment. Like now we know plants require air, they require water, they require heat, and things like that. They require soil, and this becomes the environment. The plant, a seed, can never realize its full potential unless this environmental conditions are put in place. When they lack, though the seed has its heredity, it has everything on the inside of it for it to become what it was meant to be, that seed will never realize its full potential. It might die in the process. If this environment, maybe the conditions begin, but somewhere between its inception of its being and its growth to maturity, the conditions are altered, they will hamper, infect, and affect how this seed becomes what it was meant to be. Though the traits are internal, everything is inside, the environment in which this seed falls, it will hamper, it will affect and infect what this seed is supposed to become. Therefore, when we simply remember how indispensable food is, for example, food is to our growth and what we do, and when we further bear in mind how the supply of food contributed to the environment or is brought from the environment, then we realize there is something that is serious about the place where we find ourselves. There are conditions, the environment, the situations you'll find yourself that will hamper and will also fight and negate the thing that you are meant to be. Please understand. For example, my body, your body, it is 3/4 of it is water, 75% of it is pure water, just water, saline water, whatever you call plasma blood. That's that thing. You are just water. You are simply to use the word, you are simply a hydrosphere. You are just a biosphere that is full of water. You are a hydrosphere. Everything is not moving. Everything in you is swimming. You are a skin that has water. There are other substances, of course. There is a proteins, the peptides, the poly and the monosaccharides, disaccharides, poly. There are peptides, there are lipids, there is calcium, there is phosphorus, you have carbon within, you have iron and zinc. We have all these elements, basic elements in your body, and this is what we call, in the body they are called the elements, you see. And in the Bible, they are also called elements. I think in the book of Hebrews, chapter number 6, going beyond the elementary principles. The elementary principles, they are things, they are elements that affect. Scripture says that we are not just subject to the elements. You see, they are elementary things that are working in our body, and there are hundreds basic substances. The combination of all these elements, hydrogen, carbon, oxygen, create all these other permutations of chemicals that are flowing within this hydrosphere that you're calling our body. Now, all these elements, they are elements that are found outside here. I want you to understand, every element you have within you is an element outside here. That's why we have something like the periodic table. It has all these elements. The periodic table, it continues to expand. The last time I was in a high school, I saw their periodic table. It's not what we had when we were in high school. There are other elements that they are uncovering and discovering. In our times, there used to be something called the trace elements. But today, the trace elements have been traced. They are not part of the periodic table. It's like they are discovering. Then the more they discover these elements outside, the more they are uncovering the same elements within, because the same elements that are outside, they're the same elements that we're having within. It's like life is a process of balancing between the elements within and the elements in the environment. The elements in the environment affect and infect the elements that we have in our physical bodies. Therefore, your physical body is composed of some of the same elements that are in the world around you. The air you breathe becomes part of your hemoglobin because it goes through your nostrils to the alveoli, to the lungs, the alveoli to the bloodstream pumping to the rest of your body, to the cells. The cells become the factory of producing life, the nucleus and the mitochondria, all these things. The air you breathe is the air that is within your mitochondria. It becomes the part of what is charging. If you have the wrong kind of elements in your air, it's going to affect the way your body grows. Are you understanding? Everything that you are within is everything that is on the outside. Therefore, your body lives in harmony with the things that are in the world. If you live in the wrong environment, it affects and infects who you are in your physical biosphere. And who you are in your physical biosphere, it will affect even your spirituality. I tell you the truth, it works that way. Therefore, we are living in a world of intermingling. We are intermingling. Our heredity is intermingling with our environment, and the environment is affecting our heredity. Our heredity is being affected and infected by the things that are coming from the environment. For example, every day you take something in the morning and you get out to go to your normal chores during the day. Your body gives out I think 3 liters of water daily out, depending on the prevailing situations and circumstances around you. It gives out this water. Then the water is given out. The more it is given out, the more you require to take. You see, in a healthy adult, there is this amount of water that gets out on a daily basis. When you are out and it's sunny, you sweat a lot, and there are some salts, there's some sugars that come through the pores of your skin, and you sweat it out. If you go to the gym, the same process happens. But if you don't go out and you say you are remaining in the house, the cool temperatures of the house, all this water needs to get out. So you find yourself going to the loo more. If you're not going outside, then you find yourself you're going to the loo more and more, because there is a certain amount of water that needs to come out of your body on a daily basis. You understand? And the more this water comes out, because you are healthy, if you're healthy, it's supposed to come out. If you are not healthy, it needs to be taken out. That's why you find some people, they go to all these urinalysis things. They go to some whatever. They pay a lot of money to have that water taken out, because it's a natural system. The water needs to come out. If it doesn't come out, it needs to be taken out. all these dialysis and all these other factors that come into play when your body cannot give out the water that is supposed. And the more water you give out, either through sweating or going through to the loo, short call, long call, the more water you are giving out, the more water you take in. And for me, in this particular case, the water that I take in is coming from MUWASCO. It's coming from Murang'a Water and Sanitation Company. Whether I like it or not, if the people, for example, if the people in the Murang'a Water and Sanitation Company, if they are wicked in their mind and they choose to put some certain chemical that is not good for my body, for the well-being of my skin, my cells, then at the end of the day, whether I like it or not, the environment will affect my water, and the water will affect my system. And when the water affects my system, whether I like it or not, I may live or not live. Therefore, you cannot dissociate yourself from an environment. You cannot disconnect yourself and quote unquote, it's like you're living in a bubble. Whether you like it or not, you are affected and infected by the environment in which you find yourself. Clean water, good water coming from the environment, and it affects how my life is. The air you breathe, your lung takes the oxygen goes through your lungs to the alveoli to the bloodstream to all the cells. The cells produce this energy, and the energy is taken to things like brain, the heart, and all the other the muscles, and your body is in movement because of the air that you are breathing. That is to say, heredity is not enough. Heredity is not enough. The environment is really what is a very critical part of who we become. The environment, it is who, to say, the environment is who we are. Heredity is where you are coming from. I want you to get this. Heredity is where you are coming from, but environment is who you are. Your environment, it determines who you are. Your life depends on the union between your heredity and your environment. We become that environment, and the environment becomes us. The organism must be united to its environment. Are you understanding? My body, right now I'm in Murang'a town, in Murang'a County, my body must accept Murang'a town. If I don't accept Murang'a town is going to affect my body in the wrong way. I must live in agreement with what I am receiving from the environment called Murang'a town. If I don't, the environment will work against me, and I'll be buried, and I may not even be buried here. Therefore, I must live in agreement with the laws of the environment. When I live in agreement with the laws of the environment, then I live, I move, and I have my being in the context of Murang'a town. I don't know whether you're hearing anything spiritual, because I'm talking natural laws. I'm speaking to you natural laws, but in it is a lot of spiritual reality. Another thing, an organism in itself is but a part. An organism is this, just my heredity is the things that I've inherited. I've inherited the color of my hair, whatever, the shape of my skull, the cheekbones, everything, the color of my eyes. All these things are inherited. They came from a certain genealogy. There's some certain people who had exactly these traits. You look at my father, you might find some things that look exactly him. Are you understanding? But my union with the environment is what complements what I lack in my heredity. I want you to understand that. Anything that I lack in my heredity, anything that is lacking in my stream of life, the place or the people through whom I came, is complemented by the environment I find myself. That is critically important. Alone, if I am cut off from the environment, then I am basically a past, not a present. I repeat, if I am disconnected from the environment, then I am simply a heredity, a data of where I came from, not a data of who I am. I am a past tense, not a present tense. Without water in my environment, I cannot live. Without food, I can't live. Without air, I can't live. Therefore, my environment changes me. And For it to change me, it must first of all sustain me. I must be sustained by the environment. Then the process of time, just like that child, out of 300,000, those kids that were born between yesterday and today, 300,000 children on the planet, the environment is what determines the permutation of each and every one of these child, what they become. If hypothetically, if these children were born in a certain locality, Russia, all of them, if they don't change environment, they will talk Russian. Even if they might look other things, they might look Chinese, they might look Mongoloids, they might look Caucasoids, they might look Negroid, they will look all these different. They will the feature hereditary, they will look Negroid, Mongoloid, whatever. They will look like these people. But the environment, if they don't get out of Russia, they will speak Russian. They will be educated in the Russian, they will have Russian food, Russian culture, and they will swear to the Russian flag. Are you understanding how powerful the environment is? Even if they have features that look Chinese, 300,000 born, all of them, they are born in Russia. They will do Russia, even though they, by their heredity, they are from other nations. Environment is so powerful. If I was to give birth to a son, then something miraculous happens. I give this child a name. They were born, the child is born naturally. They have my heredity, meaning they have the color of my skin. They are Negroid, according to heredity. And I give them an African name. But they don't know this name because they cannot articulate it, they can't capture it. And something miraculous happens and takes this child, and this child lands in Guangzhou. Or they find themselves in Tokyo, Japan. Do you know, even if I give this child a Kikuyu name, an African name, they will never be Kikuyus. Never. Why? The environment changed. And when the environment that would have warranted him to become a Kikuyu, even though I say this child, we have this madness in our minds that if I give birth to a son, that son is a Kikuyu by blood. No, they are not Kikuyu by blood. They are the environment they find themselves. Even if he's born of a Kikuyu father in Kenya, East Africa, he is born in central Kenya, meaning he must be a Kikuyu. If he's picked and dropped in China, Guangzhou, that child from that day, he ceases to be a Kikuyu and becomes a Chinese. He will have a Chinese name. He will be eating Chinese food. He will be taught Chinese literature. He will be dressing like them. And most likely, he will never know any other dialect except Chinese. Environment is powerful. It will sustain his life and it will change him from what he was in his heredity to what he becomes because of environment. Are we understanding what I'm talking about tonight? Natural laws, spiritual principles. Natural laws, spiritual principles, heredity and environment. Environment is so awesome, is so powerful. So, the secret of transforming power that can mold your heredity to become something else totally different. The secret of sustaining the heredity is the environment. Now, those are laws in the physical world, David Mushana. Those are laws in the physical, but they have wonderful picture of the greater realities that we find in the spiritual world, in the spiritual reality. Now, this is the truth, and I want you to get it. It's very important. I don't want you to miss this. No matter how powerful your past is, because heredity is talking about your past tense, where you came from. Environment is not talking about where you came from. Environment is talking about where you're going. I repeat, though your heredity talks about where you are coming from, your environment is speaking into your future. It is a trainer that trains you to what you're supposed to be. Now, in the spiritual world, Without environment, we have said, there is no life. Even if you have a seed that has all the program of the forest, this seed within it is a forest. We know those principles from the book of Genesis. Even though this seed is a forest, if it misses the right environment, the forest will die. Are you understanding? The information within it is genetics, is what you're calling heredity. It's what determines the kind of trees, how tall the trees will be, how green, how big the trunk, how tall the tree, how deep the roots. There are programs within the seed, and that is what is called heredity. But if it doesn't fall in the right environment, you'll never see these traits. Okay? Therefore, it simply means without environment, there is no life. Now, in the spirit, without spiritual environment, which you are calling the spiritual realm of the kingdom of heaven, this thing you're calling a human being, the heredity, the man born of woman, he has no life. The environment of a human being who is a physical heredity is the spirit of God, or what you're calling the spiritual kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of heaven, we said, is not a place, it's an environment, it's a realm. Now, what does this mean in the context of the sons of God? What does it mean for you and I? What does it mean in the context of who we are and our development in the will of God and the development of realizing who we are? Now, let's look in the book of John and start learning these things. We are dealing with heredity and environment. In the Bible, the book of John, let's read chapter number 15 and we hear how these things are laid out. I hope we are learning something. The book of John, chapter number 15, we shall read from verses number 1. We are dealing with heredity and environment, and actually talking about how powerful the environment is. This is how it reads in verse number 1. I am the true vine, Jesus speaking. I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. You're describing the environment. I am the true vine, my Father is the vine dresser. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away. And every branch that bears fruit, he prunes, that it might bear more fruit. Productivity. Verse 3. You are already clean because of the word which I have spoken to you. Then he says, verse 4, abide in me, because Jesus is the environment. Abide in me, the environment, and I in you, the heredity. As the branch cannot bear fruit by itself, meaning no matter how strong your hereditary traits are, you can't do without the environment. No matter how powerful an oak seed is, you know, an oak, the red oak, the giant red oak, no matter how powerful the genetics of this seed to develop to become an oak tree, if it doesn't have the right environment, you will never see the red oak. Never. The seed will die of itself. He says, therefore, abide in me. I think the word is meno. We shall look at it. Abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit of itself unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me. Therefore, in my heredity, no matter how strong or powerful my heredity is, no matter how awesome my traits and characteristics are, Jesus is saying emphatically, and he's not begging, he's not proud, he's simply stating the fact, I am your environment. Jesus is not just my savior. Jesus is my home. Jesus is, he has all the traits, all the air, all the qualities, all the minerals, all the water, all the soil, everything that I require for my heredity to become what it was meant to be. That's what he says. In me, that's who I am. And so he uses the word abide. In this Bible, it is 3306. I'm having a Hebrew Greek study Bible. 3306 in the Greek. I think the word is meno, if I'm not wrong. Let's see. I'm in the Old Testament dictionary. I'm looking for 3306 in the New Testament, in the Greek dictionary. 3306. We are looking for the word abide. The word, yes, actually the word is meno. The Greek term for abide, when it says abide in me, is a Greek term meno. Meno, M-E-N-O. It means to stay in a given place, to stay in a given state, to stay in a given relation, or to stay in a given expectancy. I want to repeat that. The word abide is a verb, meno in Greek. It means to stay in the context of a given place. You are in a certain place, you remain there. Number two, it means to stay in a given state. Like now what it's talking about, abide in me, is a state. Number three, to abide in a certain relation, to stay in a certain relation, or to stay in a certain expectancy. The word to abide, it means to abide, to continue, to dwell, to endure, to live, to own, to be present, to remain, to stay, and to await. It means intransitively, it means to remain and to dwell. You see, in a place, it means of a person dwelling on lodging in a certain place. But in a state or condition, abide means a person remaining in a certain state or in a certain condition. It means to continue to exist. I love this. He says, abide in me. Abide in me, it means your existence started in me. And to abide means to continue to remain in me. And he uses a very nice example there. There is the vine and the branch. The vine, if you look at the vine, he mentions there are two things. There is the vine and there is the branch. Now, from outside, when you look from afar, you say, what a beautiful vine. Are you understanding? It's a vine. You see, it's a vine, and Jesus says, I am the vine. So when you look from external, you just see Jesus. Okay? But when you come closer, you realize there is actually the certain branch, a certain the branch, the tree itself, the plant of a vine, and there is a certain twig that is connected to the main tree. Okay, this twig, which is the branch that is connected to this vine. Now, from afar, it is a vine, but when you come close, if you disconnect, if you cut this branch, then it becomes a branch. And when you disconnect, it becomes of itself. It becomes a distinct thing separated from the vine. When it separates from the vine, it becomes a branch. Are you getting what I'm saying? But when it is connected to the vine, it is not a branch, it is a vine. When it disconnects, it becomes a branch. Now, the problem is this. When it disconnects from the branch, from the vine, it becomes a branch, and the supply system, which is the vine, is no longer its supply system. And because it doesn't have its own life, in only a process of time, you shall realize it was disconnected. Why? The vine will remain green, the branch will tend towards brown. So, he says, in that context of meno, of abiding, 3306, in that state or condition, it is remaining in the state or that condition. It means to continue to exist there. It means to remain in force. It means to endure with the conjunct of time during or to which a person or a thing remains, continues, and endures. Are you understanding? So when Jesus says, abide in me, he simply means continue being attached to me so that you don't become a branch. If you shall continue being connected to this environment that is called the vine, then you are not a branch, you are the vine. Meaning, if I remain in the meno, if I remain abiding, connected to him, I am not red. I wish we understand. This is so serious. This is the difference between heredity and environment. Jesus is my environment. In the spiritual realm, in the kingdom of heaven, my environment is called the Christ. And when I remain, because I have always been, you came on the planet not as an individual, you came connected to the vine. If you disconnect yourself because of the things you found here, the philosophies, the culture, the education, the people you met, the families you are born in, the political persuasions, whether gay or straight, whatever, these are political things. Gay, straight, transgender, whatever. All these are hypnosis that you found in the place you found yourself. You found yourself in a certain country and they have all these policies and political ideas that are affecting and infecting your heredity. And so, independent, you came connected to him, but you can be disconnected from the vine and become a branch that is ready to wither because of the things that you found. Please, Jesus is saying, abide in me, remain attached to your environment. If you don't continue remaining attached to your environment, you won't realize your heredity. You won't know what you have within you. You will die with all the potentials you have within you. I am an artist. I can die with my, I don't know to what point my artistry is supposed to go unless I am connected to the environment. Because he's talking about production up there, verse number 2. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away, and every branch that bears fruit, he prunes that it may bear much fruit. Therefore, the heredity is carrying the seed of my productivity, and I cannot be productive unless I am in the right environment, and the environment is called the Christ. Verse number 5, I am the vine, you are the branches. He who abides meno, remains attached, remains in this context, remains connected to me, and I in him bears much fruit. Much fruit. For without me, I thought that thing, the first time I read this statement in John chapter number 15 verse 5, I thought Jesus was just full of himself. I think he was blowing a bubble of hot air. He says this, I thought it was pride. For without me, you can do nothing. You will think that's a statement of bluffing. You think Jesus is boasting and beating his chest, unless you understand heredity and environment. No matter your hereditary traits, no matter how strong the potential of a seed of an oak, if it is not connected to the environment, which is called the soil, where the Bible gives a principle, unless a seed falls to the ground and dies, it abides alone. If it's not falling to the right environment, that oak tree, that red oak, that big oak tree, you need to go and Google and see that tree. It's huge, huge tree, towering above other trees. No matter how strong the traits of that tree are inside this seed, if the seed doesn't fall in the right environment, it will die with a forest of oaks. Without me, you can do nothing. Jesus, I thought I could drink water without Jesus. I thought I could go mind my own business. I could marry, give birth to children, take them to the best schools without him. I think I can do that. Yes, you can. Just go ahead. Without me, you can do nothing. It simply means without me, you'll never understand the fruit that you are. You'll just be a seed of an oak without knowing, experiencing the majesty of an oak tree. Right now, you look so good. You are just a seed of an oak. You being called the seed of an oak is simply an accusation. You will never experience the oak tree because the oak tree is locked up within the seed of the oak, and it requires the right environment called the soil and the heat and the warmth and the light for it to become the oak tree. Now, Jesus is saying, all these factors that you're calling the environment, that is who I am. As long as you fall, if you fall in me, the environment, then you experience who you are locked up right now. Hallelujah. Spiritual principles in nature. Praise the name of the Lord. Therefore, the environment has everything that is required to translate me from being a seed, an accusation, to being an experience. A seed of an oak is an accusation. That's what we call a potential. What it can become, but it doesn't know yet. But when it falls in the right environment, it becomes the experience. It becomes the fullest manifestation of that accusation. Therefore, through the mighty work of regeneration, we have been birthed into the realm of the kingdom of heaven as spiritual organisms. We are spiritual organisms. We are spirit beings. We have been begotten of the Father. We are the offspring of the Heavenly Father. We are the offshoots. The word offspring means the one having the same quality as the parent. You know, we have parent cells and daughter cells. The daughter cell is an offspring of the parent cell, and it looks exactly the parent. It contains everything that is in the parent cell. If I went into the ocean and scooped water with this glass, just scooped water from the ocean, everything in this glass is everything in the ocean. Everything, all the organisms that are in the ocean, they are represented here. Therefore, if we are begotten of God, everything that the Father is, I am. I spring from God, therefore I am. Actually, it might sound blasphemous. It might sound blasphemous, but everything the Father is, I am, right here, right now. The water in the glass and the water in the ocean, if the glass scooped water from the ocean, everything in the ocean is inside the glass. I want you to understand. The glass looks smaller. If I was to tell you the ocean, just the ocean, you'd go like, brother, you are sick, you're crazy. This is not the ocean. The ocean is that thing that is roaring outside there. That's the ocean. But you see, this water is exactly the same water that is in the ocean. Therefore, this is a representation of everything that the ocean is. Meaning, if I have been begotten of the Father, if I am the offspring of the spiritual Father, or the Father in the Spirit, then everything I am is my Father. No wonder Jesus could make some statements and Pharisees wanted to kill him. They thought he was blaspheming. It's basic truth. These are laws of nature. A daughter cell, if a cell, one single cell, does something called binary fusion, it divides one cell into two. It starts from within, from the from the nucleus. Everything that was there, divides into two. The meiosis, mitosis, those processes, and the nucleus divides, and then when the nucleus has finally divided, there are two now. Then this external, the plasma, everything will start now dividing to become two. One becomes the parent cell, the other becomes the daughter cell. But you look at the qualities inside the daughter cell is exactly what is in the parent cell. That's what he's saying. That's the meaning of the word begotten. If you are begotten of a Father, if you are begotten of God, you are the very God. Christians will not understand that. They will say you are blaspheming, and they look for ways of stoning you. Therefore, there has been awakened within us. Within us, something has come alive. There has been awakened within us a new principle and a new power of life. That God's very own divine life, that thing that we call the life of heaven, is what we are. That's what has been brought alive in us. That is the awakening. The very thing that I am, and actually I'm saying I am is the name of God. The very thing I am is everything my Father is. As He is, so am I. Right here, right now. There is nothing I can do to become. I can't shout more. I cannot sing more. I cannot repent more. I can't cry more. I cannot sleep in a church overnight to become more. I can't go to a forest and live there for 30 days for me to become more. I can't deny myself food for 40 days or even 1 year for me to become more of God. There is nothing I can do. I simply am. I am. Jesus, there is nothing he could do to become the Son of God. He was simply born that way. That is his heredity. He came that way, but he needed a certain environment. The environment is called abiding in him. John 15, verses number 1 to verses number 5. I don't want you to forget that. Very important, the environment. Now, this, where we are, being born of a Father, we are the new creation. We are new creation in Christ Jesus. We shall be dealing with that next, when you are dealing with new birth, so that we may understand what you are born into. The thing that we call born again. What is that? born again? Is this something that you do in a crusade when you are threatened by a certain evangelist that you are going to burn in hellfire forever? Then you come to Jesus shaking because Jesus is your insurance against the fire. Is that what we call born again? Because that's what you are taught in religion. But is that the truth? We shall be looking at that thing because it's in the context of heredity and environment for us to understand, what am I born into? This born again stuff, what is it? Is this something that we shout everywhere? Oh, I'm born again. Oh, I'm born again. My name is Frederick. I'm born again. Christ is Lord in my life. From the day he saved me till now, I have not seen anything to cause me to go back, and I'm still pressing on, waiting for him to come so that he may take me to heaven. Is that what we call born again? Or is there something else? So, even in us being born again, even in us having the life of God on the inside of us, we require a spiritual environment. That's what you're calling the environment. We require that thing in which for us to live and to move and have our being. Now, that thing that you're calling environment is the kingdom of heaven, the life of the Spirit. The kingdom of heaven is our environment. And that is where we live and move and have our being. That spiritual world, that spiritual realm is our environment. It has an environment. The whole universe, everything that you're seeing in the physical, they are just things that are teaching us this tangible truth. I don't think I can go beyond here. But ladies and gentlemen, we shall continue from this one because there's some other scriptures that we need to learn. But I don't want you to forget, there is heredity and there is environment. The seed of an oak is not the experience of the oak. The seed of the oak is an accusation, is what the oak can be but hasn't been yet, because the oak, all its attributes, actually a whole forest of oaks is locked in this one seed. This seed, even though it is a forest of red oaks, it will never become the forest unless it falls in the environment. We have learned in the book of John, chapter number 15, Jesus says, abide. Very powerful word. Abide, meno in Greek. It means, I am your context. You fall in me. I am the branch. I am the vine. You are the branch. If you disconnect yourself from me, you become the branch. If you remain connected to me, you are the vine. Therefore, if you are in Christ, you are the vine. Outside Christ, you are the branch. And the branch, we are told, it cannot bear fruit of itself unless it abides, unless it remains connected in the context of a vine. Neither can you unless you are connected to me, that is Jesus. But he says at the very end of it all, verse number 5, I am the vine, you are the branches. He who abides in me, he who abides in me remains connected to me, meaning we have always been connected to him. If you remain connected to him, if you remain the vine and I in him, I become his heredity, because there are two principles. If you remain in me, I become your environment, and I remain in you, I become your heredity. Then you bear much fruit, for without me you can do nothing. Frederick Mora Mukiri Zoe Communion Frederick, signing out tonight from Muranga town of Muranga County. We shall continue in the name of the Lord. Amen and amen.